manager and special counsel are all.
Thank you, Mr. Neese. For a moment of silence this evening, let's keep in mind all those in Florida involved with the Surfside condominium issue, especially obviously those who were the families who lost lives in there, and along with all the first responders. Thank you, Mr. Neese. For a moment of silence this evening, let's keep in mind all those in Florida involved with the Surfside condominium issue. Okay, please rise and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We have before us this evening's agenda. I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda as written or consideration of any changes.
Yes, I will propose some changes to the agenda. To item 9, I'd like to change item 9.1, and 9.1 would be an amendment to Resolution 2021-24, which established the Newtown Township Trails and Greenway Committee, and that would be amended with Resolution 2021-25. In item 9.2 would be a new item, and that would be the members of the Trails and Greenways Committee. And we would have 3 appointments to 4-year terms ending on 12/21, 2024. Is it 12/21 or 30?
31. 31. It should be 31.
Okay. 3 appointments for a 4-year term ending on 12/31/2024. 2 appointments for a 3-year term ending on 12/31/2023. 2 2-year appointments ending on 12/31/2022. And 2 1-year appointments ending on 12/31/2021. And that's my motion to change the agenda.
Is there a second? Second. This is made by Supervisor Partridge, seconded by Supervisor Russo to amend the agenda as discussed. Any further questions from members of the board on that item? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the agenda as amended, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Item number 6 is public comment for agenda items only. What we have done in public is to take those items during the discussion, so we will reserve that item for occurring during the discussions as opposed to up front, and we'll amend the agenda accordingly in the future. Thank you. Item number 7 is minutes. We've had the opportunity.
Mr. Chairman, if you hold on just one moment, we're having.
Good?
I think you figured it out.
All righty. Item 7.1, consider approving minutes from our June 28th, 2021 meeting. I trust we all had the opportunity to review those minutes. I'll entertain a motion for approval or consideration of any changes.
I'll make a motion to approve the meeting minutes from June 28, 2021,
As written.
as written.
Is there a second?
Second.
Which was made by Supervisor Altieri, seconded by Supervisor Roberts Lightcap to approve the minutes from June 28th, 2021 as written. Any further questions or discussions on the minutes? Seeing and hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Under item number 8, we have 2 presentations. The first being the Newtown Township Battle of the Badges, American Red Cross Blood Drive. Mike Giunta. You're not Mike.
I'm not Mike. Hi, my name is Caroline Kaiser. I work with Mike. He's that phone. Here it is. Okay. I work with Mike, but he's not here tonight. So I'm from the American Red Cross. I'm here to talk to you about our upcoming event. Thank you for having me. The Battle of the Badges will be hosted at Stratford Friends just down the road on August 4th from 9 a.m. to 7 p.m. It's an important event that allows the community to directly interact with the police and the fire department in a positive way, allowing community impact, but also impact the community through blood donations for the local hospitals. So I'm here to let everyone know about the upcoming event. There are flyers at the back door. If everyone could please share this information. We're hoping to have 80 people signed up by the morning of the drive. We have 10 currently. Walk-ins will be welcome. It's a great opportunity to come out and not only donate, but like I said, participate with the community in a positive light. So hopefully some fire department people and some police department people, officers and whatnot can come out and participate. The information to sign up is to visit redcrossblood.org and enter the code Newtown, or you can just enter the postcode 19073.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Any questions? Good.
So I'm
Mr.
guessing, is it a competition? I mean, or what's the goal here is to see if more people, when you go in, are you saying you're signing up under the police department? Are you saying you're signing up under the fire department? Like, tell us a little bit, what's the message behind Battle of the Badges?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, you guys get back up there. Because that'll be a good way. Everybody likes a little competition, so let's.
Yeah, of course. So you are correct. It is a battle between the two departments. So the police department can have people come in, sign up, and say, I'm donating on behalf of the police department. Same with the fire department. So in the end, one of the departments will get a plaque, be recognized. We hope to have the media come out so both sides can speak. You are welcome as well. So yes, when people come to donate, they can choose a side on which they'd be donating. Of course, all the units go generally to the local hospitals that we partner with, but yes, it becomes a battle of the individual groups. So it is a fun event. There's a little sportsmanship involved, but overall, it's just a fun event.
Kind of cool.
So you can go in that day as a free agent and see who gives you the best prize, right? Get out of speeding ticket, save my house, you know.
Yeah. All donors will be getting a free T-shirt. The Battle of the Badges, like branded T-shirt. But yes, I mean, if someone would like to, I know when we ran with the Radnor Police Department back in June, they did auction off 2 ride-alongs for donors' children to come and like be brought to school in a squad car or something. So we like to have people get into it and have fun. So, you guys have any other questions?
I remember the last time they did this was when the Wawa opened. It was a
Yes,
battle of the
right,
Hoagie
I
building.
remember
I think
that,
the
yeah.
fire,
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
the fire company won that one. So
Yeah.
maybe the police department's mounting a challenge.
There you go.
Mr. Nice, is this flyer on our website?
It is.
Fantastic. Good. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Nice, you're up next with the 2022 personnel budget. I want to remind everybody that this is, especially those in the audience, that this is just a presentation on the budget. We are not necessarily taking discussion or questions on the budget at this time. We will have a time as we progress and get through all these when we're prepared to present the entire budget, at which time we'll have long, lengthy discussions at your pleasure. So tonight is really just a presentation for mainly our information and your information. So go ahead, Mr. Nice.
Yes. So as Chairman Nawn pointed out, really tonight is really just a presentation. Usually, if the board remembers and the public remembers, at this point, we would be presenting capital. Due to our meeting that we had back in May, and we were looking at the strategic plan, there was a lot more that came from that. And so everybody's kind of working on pulling some of those numbers together. The one that's a little bit challenging for us is the trolley car being returned to Newtown. We're trying to figure out how much that would cost. That came up. That was kind of our pie in the sky one.
Right.
Obviously, we're not going to be presenting a number on that, or at least not one that anybody's going to want to
No.
spend anything on. But we are trying to pull together the different things that have been that the board had brought to our attention, and so that we can have some numbers for you related to that. So we did go back and say we were ready to kind of move forward with the personnel budget, the pieces that are there. I would make note, when we look at this, we think about the organization as a whole. And so as we're looking at 22, The first thing we think about, that everything that kind of drives who we are is the citizens. And, you know, as we know, this is an election year, so obviously the citizens play even a bigger part this year in helping us set the direction. We also have the elected auditors and the elected tax collector. And then the Board of Supervisors moves from that point, appoints, you know, our engineer, our solicitor, an independent auditor, and then also myself. And then underneath there, we have the directors, and I'm not going to read through all of that for you, but you know who make up your directors in your departments. So as we talk about this, we're really talking about those who are under and work underneath me. And so as we're looking at personnel, just so everybody kind of understands what it looks like, that's what we're looking at. But we're going to go through, talk about a few things prior to that. Under the legislative head count, as you're aware, you have five of you as Board of Supervisors. And then we also have 3 elected auditors. And so we have those, and that's something that's set by our code, and that was what we maintain. And so there is a fee that you all receive, or I shouldn't say a fee you receive a payment that you receive. And as you can see, the $19,995 is the total for the services that you provide from all 5 of you. So that's what that is. And that's also set by second-class township code. And so that doesn't change. And unless the second-class township code changes, that's set ahead of time. And even if the second-class township code were to change, it would only be for those who are elected after that point. Those who are elected during that term would continue to serve at whatever the set amount was during their election. The next group is the elected auditors, or the tax collector, I'm sorry. And we have 1 elected tax collector, obviously, and then we have somebody that we bring in to help Marie from time to time related to collecting taxes when she's not here. We're very fortunate with our tax collector, the amount of hours that she puts in way more than what's required by law. And so we're very thankful for that. And I can tell you, just from a standpoint of when we do our end and we look at the numbers, Rich and I have talked about this often. When we get the real estate tax payments in, there's not a lot of differences. I mean, I think last year she was off all of 50 cents in the whole year. So that's impressive, and we're very thankful for that. And it's wonderful with that. So we have that, and there's a fee that, as you see, that we pay her, and also the person that she brings in when she's unable to be here. So those 2 are set and in place long before we get to this point, and there's no change that can be made on those based on when the election has happened. So then underneath administration, we have myself, our administrative services director / our HR director. We have a part-time clerical person, and then we have a half-time finance admin support position, and currently we have a communications personnel position that's in place. And you're aware of those that for 2022, we're actually recommending hiring an additional half-time personnel support or administrative support in that, and then the other half would be allocated to public works in there. And so that's what we're looking for in the administration. Head count would go basically from 3.5 to 4 in that area.
There's a question on that?
Yes.
Do you want us to wait until the end, or?
No, I'm happy to take questions as we go along.
Jump out as we go. So in terms of that, like half-time administration support personnel and half-time for public works, we're not talking about someone who potentially in the morning is going to be out with George and the crew and then coming in the office, right? It's kind of.
It's an administrative position. Who knows? We might send them out to do that. But the intent is to be, really is to be an administrative person to answer phone calls, hopefully get information out to people a little quicker, because we have somebody in the office when George and Harry are out addressing issues out on the street, and trying to do those kind of
And
things.
essentially, so just so I can understand it, so it's to, one, free up George and Harry, who take almost every call and phone and email themselves, and then also to continue to have someone there as they're out in the field fixing whatever it is that they're doing.
Correct. It would be somebody to be able to take that phone call initially and be able to hopefully answer it. And George and Harry never even need to have to pick it up. But if they do need to, then they could transfer it to them and do that.
So basically allocated to Public Works administrative duties.
Correct.
Half the time is under the public works budget, half the time is under administrative budget.
Correct. I probably didn't say that real clearly, so but that is what we're looking for. All right. So the difference, we're making a couple changes, and making those changes, the actual cost and increase comes out to be about $17,000-$18,000 in the administration department with that add. Obviously, that's splitting between two. Also making some adjustments based on the hires that we've had this year or end of last year. Under the finance, we have the finance director, and then the 2 full-time employees, and then we also have the person who's split between finance and admin support, and then typically our intern that we have there. For 2022, right now, we're proposing to eliminate the intern to help cover the costs of the part-time person that we're bringing in under administration, and then go from there, giving you a head count of really no change other than the temporary that we would bring in as an intern, and but with the basis of there's a little bit of movement been around because I believe this position was the position that was all finance. I'm saying this wrong. The position that was administration and finance was all under finance before. We've now split it 50-50 as it really is what's happening, so that you see that.
And then the utility is the municipal authority person.
Yes, that position, I'll go back up real quick. You know, I will say that from the municipal authority side, you know, we provide that service, and that position is strictly, I say strictly that she does do some other things as the cashier, but her predominant responsibility is that. But and likewise, you know, our accounts payable clerk is doing the bills for the municipal authority as well. And then this part-time person's doing some accounts receivable for them.
And then the municipal, I'm sorry, the municipal authority pays back.
We have an amount that we get back from them.
Okay.
Rich and I have talked about it. We probably need to reevaluate what that amount is this year and see
Well,
whether,
as more customers come on.
well, they got more customers coming on. Plus, you know, we've done some increases
Right.
of raises and things like that. And so that all of those things in play, we're reevaluating how much time people are spending where and what's the right amount to be charging back to the municipal authority. Any other questions? Sorry. My screen to match the one that's on the thing here real quick. Yeah, so under public safety, you're familiar, we have obviously the police chief, 2 admin folks, the crossing guard and lieutenant. You're taking an action later tonight, potentially to add a captain and change that a little bit, and we'll reevaluate the org chart at that time. Currently, there are 20 officers, and there are 2 admin folks, and then I believe there's 2 crossing guards. What's being asked for is an additional patrolman. If you will recall, back in 2016, I believe it was, we presented to you a plan to add an additional patrolman to each patrol or platoon, and we had gotten through with some ups and downs and some changes that have happened, and we've had a couple officers leave and we backfilled, and so we've actually only ever added 2 of the 4. This would be the 3rd of the 4 if we move forward with that, and that's what's being requested. So if you will look at where we are, we have, again, we're showing 19 officers who are working for the township. The one is the school resource officer, makes up that 20. He spends the school year at the school. The summers he spends working for the township. Then we have 2 non-uniform folks and the 2 crossing guards. Next year it would be 2021.
And we split him with the, I'm sorry, Don. We split him with the school district, correct?
Right, so the school district actually pays throughout the school year from September until, I guess, like beginning of June, middle of June, something like that. And I may even actually start a little bit in August because he's there as the school kind of kicks off, gets the teachers in, goes around, is in, making sure that everybody knows who he is and those kind of things.
And what happened with COVID? Because of the restrictions, I guess in the fall, the public schools weren't open.
Yeah. So a lot of his time was spent back working for us, and so we ended up swallowing some of that. I don't know if all that has even been finalized with the school district. They did agree to pay some expenses because they knew that was falling back all on us,
Right.
In that way. So when we look at adding the officer plus the contracted increase of 3% for next year, with the officer, that works out to about $252,000 of increase. And so that's what the increase would be in the police department. I would mention, we just built in a 3% increase all the way across the board this year for all positions based on kind of what we're looking at. We will evaluate that again as we get near September. In September, we get the numbers typically from I'm drawing a blank on which cost of living it is, but there's a cost of living index that we always use as our basis for increases. And so right now, I think it's running about 2 3/4, something like that, and that's what we're watching. Under the codes department, obviously you're familiar, we have our codes director. We have 2 contractors that we bring in, BIU and our electrical inspector. Actually, BIU fills in on both sides. There are a building inspector, but they also do electrical inspections with the electrical inspector, depending on which person somebody picks when they come in for an electrical permit. As you know, we have a planning and zoning coordinator, or the clerical position. We also have our property maintenance inspector, and then we have the part-time fire marshal as our 3 positions that are under that group. We're not proposing any changes other than just to get back up to full capacity, and hopefully we'll be back there before the end of the year. And that's 3, 1, and then based on the outside contracted, it's about equivalent to 4 people, the benefit that we get from that. Works out to a basic change and an increase of about $5,000. And then we come down under Public Works. As you can see, most of our, you have the Public Works Director and our Public Works Supervisor, and then we have mostly driver laborers, some seasonal help, and the intern. Again, for 2022, we're proposing adding the halftime position. And again, with doing that, we've talked about eliminating currently the intern with the idea to make sure that we're not looking at much of a budget change in that area. Again, that is a halftime position between Public Works and admin. And again, it's an admin Public Works position to help with that side of it. And the total increase there is about $16,000. And if you look at the total increase that we're looking at this point is 316. And as you're aware, by just going through the numbers, the largest percentage of that is in the police department. And so I'm going to skip over the next couple slides real quick. I want to jump all the way down to the bottom slide just for timing. And just to kind of give you an idea of where when we're looking at personnel, where the expenses are, obviously that biggest piece is under the public works or under the police department, public safety. And then the next biggest chunk is under the public works, which is what I would expect to see in an organization this way, right? Because our biggest pieces are our folks who are out on the street, and that's what we want. That's the service that we're providing, and it shows that that's where our services, most of our services are lying. And if you add in then the codes position and hopefully the administration positions that are also outward focusing, you can see where that's where most of that is. Any questions that you have about what we presented? Obviously, right now, we're still pulling a lot of things in. This may change as we move towards September, but I just wanted you to see where we are right at the moment. Yes.
Not directly related to this, but you mentioned it, so yes, the police officer, the school resource officer. So when we plan that position out, whatever the funding was for the summers is what we had planned on.
Yes.
So you never know what's going to happen, but I mean, just with the school personnel, maybe some of the school personnel that wasn't needed because kids were remote. I mean, they're still getting paid. I mean, they were still paying them. I mean, the police officer, us using the police officer when allocated to the school, I mean, we were maybe over capacity, with using that police officer. I think that the school district should pay the salary. I mean, that was what the planning up front and the agreement up front was done. So we shouldn't shoulder any of the burden for that police officer during the school year. I mean, I don't know if the rest of the board's behind that or not, but I think we should.
I think the question begs the answer, because yes, we did structure that position to be paid by the school district. They paid their staff. They should have been paying our school resource officer during the time in which obviously the school isn't open, but still that's what we contracted him and them for. So I think we at least have to start that discussion in the school district.
I know we have had that discussion already, and we've continued. I don't know that everything's been finalized, and they were open to paying a portion. So,
well, I mean, I'm looking at not just a board director.
yeah.
No,
You agree?
Yeah, I also agree with what Tina just said right there. It was a contract.
It was a contract. They paid their teachers per their contract. They should.
pay us for it.
Not only that, but I don't know, Steve, if that legislation that the General Assembly passed that prohibited school boards from touching any of their employees, or eliminating them, reducing their pay, if that would have any impact or guidance for a school resource officer. But I would think that since the General Assembly explicitly went to protect school district employees, the contract delineates the school resource officer as an employee of the school district. I don't see how we would not fall under that.
Yeah, by all means, I think we've already started discussions, and perhaps you should ramp up the discussions and explain to them the thoughts and wishes of the board here.
We will.
And we can take it from there.
Got it.
Good point, Ed.
Got clear direction.
Well, I'll give it to Lynn. He's the one that kicked it off.
Compliments all over the place.
It's a love fest tonight. It won't always be that way. Any other questions for Mr. Neese on the personnel presentation? All right, seeing none, thank you very much, Mr. Neese. All right, next on the agenda is item 9.1 and 9.2. Item 9.1, Mr. Partridge, Mr. Russo.
Resolution number 2021-25, establishing the Newtown Township Trails and Greenways Committee. Whereas the Board of Supervisors committed to improving the quality of life of its residents by preserving open space, creating corridors of protected and recreational greenways, and desires to establish new walking trails, paths, and bike routes across the township. And whereas to achieve these goals, the Board of Supervisors hereby creates Newtown Township Trails and Greenways Committee. And whereas the committee shall be tasked with, among other objectives, implementing the Newtown Township Greenway Open Space Network Plan, enhancing existing greenways and open space, providing connections between downtown neighborhoods and surrounding municipalities, parks, and open space, clarifying greenway and open space needs, and identifying new greenway and open space opportunities. And whereas the Board of Supervisors has received significant interest from the township residents who are interested in serving on the Trails and Greenways Committee, now therefore it be resolved, the board hereby recommends Resolution 2021-24 as follows. The Newtown Township's Trails and Greenways Committee is hereby established. The committee shall consist of a minimum of 5 members and no more than 9 members to be appointed by the Board of Supervisors from time to time or at the annual reorganizational meeting. The committee members shall serve terms of 4 years unless otherwise determined by the Board of Supervisors. The committee shall hold monthly meetings open to the public, the records of which shall be kept and made public. Adopted this date of 12th day of July 2021 by the Board of Supervisors, Newtown Township.
Is there a second?
I'll second that, Mr. Chairman.
Motion is made by Supervisor Russo, seconded by Supervisor Altieri to approve Resolution 2021-25, establishing the Newtown Township Trails and Greenways Committee, amended. Any further questions or discussions on the resolution from members of the board? Any questions from members of the general public on this particular item? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Before we move on, a question for Mr. Catania. Mr. Catania, do we need to somehow vacate Resolution 2021-24?
I think, no, we don't have to.
That was the one we passed previously establishing this
Yeah, we
committee.
just amended it.
We just announced in this.
Okay.
This one comes
All
up.
right, that's fine.
We will go back and note on it that it was amended by this particular resolution.
Do we need to formally appoint liaison for this committee? Is that something we can do now, or do you have to do that at the next meeting, or?
I think if you're going to appoint a liaison from the board, you can do that now.
Mike, you're the liaison, right? I'd like to make a motion that we appoint Mike Russo, Supervisor Mike Russo, as the liaison for our Newtown Township Trails and Greenways Committee.
Second.
Seconded by Supervisor Partridge. Mike, you'll accept?
Yes.
Any further questions or discussions on the motion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Congratulations, Mr. Russo. Well done with getting this committee off the ground.
So Supervisor Altieri and I interviewed 16 tremendous candidates last week via Zoom. And unfortunately, we made it a very strong statement and told everybody, listen, if you don't get selected for this committee, we want to make sure you stay interested. There's jobs and opportunities on other committees that come up from time to time throughout the year, and at the reorganization at the end of the year, next year. And we couldn't have 16 members on this committee. It would just be too cumbersome. So we've selected 9 individuals. They're going to be staggered terms based upon the fact that this is the first year of operation. I'm going to read off the individuals and the number of terms or number of years they've been assigned. First person, Sharon Trio, 1-year term. Terry McCarthy, 4-year term. Bethany Jiska, 4-year term. Joseph Falcon, a 3-year term. Anthony DiVincenzo, 2-year term. Aaron Cook, 3-year term. John Custer, 4-year term. Amy Blackriff, 1-year term. And Troy Dunmeyer, 2-year term. And again, everybody was fantastic that we talked to, and we hope that you're still interested in other opportunities that come. Stay abreast of them on the website, and we also will keep you on record here so that if anything comes up throughout the year, we'll have the township managers team reach out to you and see your interest.
Is that your motion, Mr. Russo?
Yes.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion was made by Supervisor Russo, seconded by Supervisor Altieri to appoint the 9 members to the Trails and Greenways Committee as read. Any further questions, comments, discussions on the motion?
The only thing I just want to add there, I echo everything that Supervisor Russo said. I know that there's a few of the individuals who we interviewed that are here tonight, so I appreciate you being here. In terms of the stagger terms, just so everybody knows, we think that everybody did an amazing job. So if you don't think that if someone has a 4-year term versus a 1-year term that they're somehow superior, it's just because it is a new committee, we got to stagger them. So you just reappoint, reapply when your term expires. If you have interest after your first year, second year, or third year, or even your fourth year. But quite frankly, I think this committee is going to really be able to get off the ground running very quickly. We have some extremely capable individuals from all facets of industries, from all different neighborhoods in this township. Residents want trails and greenways in this community, and this committee that we have put together, this board has put together with Supervisor Russo's leadership, is going to deliver on that. I have no doubt about that whatsoever. So I look forward to working with Mike, and I know the rest of the board looks forward to working with the rest of the individuals in this committee.
It's also part of our strategic plan.
Absolutely.
I would just make note also that after this first staggering, all of the terms would be 4 years, just so it's clear.
Yes.
That for the public, that going forward, all the terms would be a 4-year term.
Right, they're all 4-year terms, we just have to stagger them initially.
Yes.
So that we don't end up replacing everybody at the same exact time. So. We good? Motion was made and seconded. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you to those who are serving on our committee. Well done, Supervisor Russo. I think this is a great committee and look forward to great things from it. All right, moving on. Item number 10, reports. Mr. Neese.
I have a few things I need to report. One is not a pleasant thing I need to report. We're having a fair amount of vandalism at Newby Park. And for those who don't kind of know where that is, if you go out to Main Line or Media Line and go straight across and go back into that neighborhood down there in the back corner is where the park is. Where people are, for whatever reason, pulling all of the doggy bags out and throwing them all over and doing some of those kind of things. I've instructed the Public Works Department at this point not to replace them for a period of time until we can figure out what we're going to do. There's some damage to the swing sets, there's some damage to some other stuff, and they've broken some of the fence rails. And so we're looking at what some options are, talking with the police department for some options that we're going to look at.
Is there any thought of putting in a camera?
That is one of the things we're
I mean,
looking
they're
at.
like $80, and they they're very easy. They set up. You can run them on your computer. I know it's not the professional version you might go buy, but it's not a very big cost to have.
All you need is to catch
Right.
it one time,
Yeah.
and that's it.
And we can reuse them in other places.
Yeah, one of the challenges that's been shared with me is that we've actually tried that a couple times in the past, and the cameras were stolen. So, we're looking at how a way to do that and help to protect it and make it happen.
Perhaps the school resource officer also not busy over the summer. Maybe go camp out at Newby Park.
So anyway, I just wanted you to be aware of that. It's very frustrating because we're working really. I mean, I think the township's doing really some great things moving forward with our parks. It's just a shame that we're having that problem at that one location. But I just wanted you to be aware if somebody says anything, yes, we've pulled back on replacing some of those doggy bags and things like that until we can get it under control. We've just received a letter today from the Goshen Fire Company. They're having their county fair, and they were asking for assistance from the Newtown Fire Police. Because they fall under our workers' comp, that we have to do a release for them to go and do that. And we've always done it in the past. Unless you tell me you don't want us to, I'm going to continue to do what we've done in the past in that way. The next thing I have, and I want to just make everybody aware, Gather in the Circle group has been working really hard with the farmers market. Hopefully people will come out and continue to come out. The township will be the community table this week. And so we'll be there. Some staff members as well as some of you board members will be there. So we will be there for that. I would make note that as we move in the next couple of weeks, and then as we move into the later part of the summer, we're going to try some traffic calming techniques and some changes there at the Circle, and they are going to include potentially some Jersey barriers. We're not doing construction. We are just looking at trying to change traffic pattern a little bit to see if that kind of helps create the experience that we're trying to experience there as the Gather in the Circle
Are
location.
you using the concrete ones or water filled ones?
I'm not 100% sure. We're working with DDRPC. It's part of their project.
I think they're the water.
I think they're probably the water-filled ones.
Just easier to move around.
Yeah. One of my recommendations has been to the Gather in the Circle group is that we look at maybe putting some plantings in front of the Jersey barriers to help
Yeah.
make it feel a little bit more, or maybe make it less look like a construction zone and more feel like it's like kind of a purposeful thing at that location. So I wanted you to be aware, it is a test. And so I just want to make sure everybody understands as we do this. And so if you're getting calls and questions, the purpose of this is to test what would happen if we did this, if we shortened in some of the entrances, or, because there's some of those entrances into the circle are very wide. What if we bring them down to one lane? What would that look like? Even on some of the exits, what would that look like? We've already put a crosswalk in. We're going to add another crosswalk in the next week or
You're trying to
so.
make the circle look like more like a roundabout, which it should be.
Right.
Correct. That's exactly what we're trying
I've
to do.
gotten a lot of positive feedback with that crosswalk.
Yes.
And I know that the business owners, I'm on the Gather, I didn't realize we had the Jersey barriers, but I am on the committee. But I know that it has made a tremendous difference, just that one crosswalk for the businesses.
Yep.
And they can visualize now what we were trying to accomplish before, so.
There would actually, by the end of the summer, we hope to have actually 4 crosswalks put in and all painted out, and that experience. And like I said, it's kind of bringing in a little bit of the roadway there, making it just to feel a little bit more like a community spot that you want to go and hang out.
And those Jersey barriers, whether it's the water-filled ones or the concrete ones, as we've seen through COVID, you look in Center City or anywhere else, they can decorate. I mean, they can be covered completely with flowers and planters.
No.
So I would highly advise that point gets stressed to continue with that feel.
Finally, my last thing that I have is that the state of Pennsylvania, state legislature of Pennsylvania and the governor have passed a guideline that changes the Sunshine Act. In that change, it really is some of what we've already been doing, and that is that we're trying not to add anything new to the agenda typically in an evening. Tonight happened to be one of those nights that we did, but typically we don't add something new to the agenda. We try not to. And so, but going forward, we'll be very limited as to what we can add. Even if public comment is made, I think what's really important for folks to understand, if they make public comment, that you may be limited in the action that you can take. Really, the action you can take is refer it back to staff, that we would put it on the next agenda, and we would do that. So just so you know, there'll probably be a few changes that are made. Some of what I report out, sometimes we ask you to take action on. Those things will be added as new agenda items. And you obviously will have choices what you want to do, but you may see them down there if I think there's going to be deliberation versus what we've done in the past. So I'm just kind of letting you know that there are some rules. If there's an emergency that comes up, you could take action. If something came up in the last 24 hours, as long as it's de minimis, doesn't require a contract, those kind of things, you can take action. So I just wanted you to be aware. I also wanted the public to be aware. And this goes in effect in August. And so we're going to be doing that. And it affects all of our committees that function on behalf of the township. So it'll be for the municipal authority, it'll be for EAC, it'll be for Parks and Rec. All of those are affected by this. And so I just wanted to make sure that you're aware. We want to make sure the public's aware. And we're going to be working hard to get that information out to everybody so that they know.
And I know that as a board, we have a Thursday deadline for the agenda for a Monday meeting.
Yes.
For the other committees, there's never been a schedule, a calendar.
We're going to work on a schedule.
Yeah, especially for planning commission.
Yes.
Because there's always been like the last minute and planning commission members had not been able to to review those,
Yeah,
so,
so that should be a 2-week, I mean,
yeah, that one
having
has
done
to
this
be, yes.
before as a developer or an engineer, if I come in, submit plans, day before meeting, I'm not going that agenda, I have to go to the next.
Yeah,
one.
I mean, we have some requirements now, but there are some things that get brought on at the last minute where
Probably
that's all
formally
going to
set
kind
that
of
and
go
say
away.
that,
Yeah.
2 weeks, 3 weeks.
Well, and I think the members feel rushed.
Yeah,
when
they
there's-
shouldn't.
Because
And-
you've got sets of plans that you can't even digest, and they're making the presentation, it's not fair to the committee members.
Or a lawyer comes in with red lines, drops a red line,
Yeah,
you
no,
know what I
you
mean,
can't.
a red line
that-
document,
Yeah.
It needs to be.
when they
timed.
knew about it for a month or 2 months. You
Yeah,
give
So-
but if I can make a recommendation, I think that planning needs to be the first one that has a scheduled date. And anyone, who else comes in from outside?
Zoning.
Zoning, well, they have a, don't they have that?
They should.
I think
So
they have the date,
what I
right?
will do is I'll work with the MPC code and I'll work with what I think makes sense with what we have as committees. Obviously, the one that would not be the case is municipal authority will set their own.
Yes.
But other than municipal authority, we'll come back with a recommendation to you as to when everything should be on the agenda ahead of time, and we'll let you approve that. And that way,
Great idea.
it's that way you've approved it, and it gives us as staff the authority to say, the board has said, this is when it
And
needs
you
to
can
be.
put it on the
in.
website so
I was gonna
everybody
say,
knows.
we
And
should
then,
ask that
There
on
and
it
then
is.
we'll put it on the calendar and we'll get it
Yeah.
out.
So when you get it the day after the deadline, you can say,
No,
refer
you're
to
in
the
the next-
catered
you're the next
website.
month.
And trust me, from a staff perspective,
Yeah, we
I'm
were a
already
little too-
having.
It was a little too, we were too accommodating.
I
and
have,
got
I have
us
a
to the
particular
same
staff
level.
member on the other side of the room over there, who is like jumping up and down with that direction. So that's good.
Can I just add something? And I think that it's something that's worth saying about the way that this township government has been functioning, that if you look at the changes that the Sunshine Act amendments made, we've already been doing them.
Right.
And we've been doing them for a long period of time, of having a full detailed agenda, of having attachments onto the website. We've always been a very open and transparent form of government. And I think, quite frankly, that it's a compliment that the state is now requiring other municipalities to come up to our level. So I just wanted to state that for the record. I think it's great.
Thank you.
Well
You did a
stated.
good job, Steve.
Well stated, Mr. Alter. Any other questions for Mr. Neese? All right, moving on. Let's get to some payments here. Item 11.1, consider approving payment application number 16 in the amount of $95,760.97 to CM3 Building Solutions for outstanding building punch list items that have been completed.
So move for approval.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further questions or discussions from members of the board on this item? Hearing none. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Item 11.2, consider approving the $13,007.52 escrow release to Builders, Inc. at 43 Raymond Drive in Havertown for the completed Chase Bank project.
I moved.
Is there a second?
Second,
Motion is made by Supervisor Altieri, seconded by Supervisor Roberts. Lightcap to approve item 11.2. Any further questions on this item? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Item 11.3, consider approving a $706.50 escrow release payment to Howard Alexander at 300 Old Lissitor Road for a completed grading project.
Moved.
Is there a second?
Second,
Made by Supervisor Altieri, seconded by Supervisor Roberts Lightcap to approve item 11.3. Any further questions or discussions on the motion? Seeing and hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Item 11.4, consider approving the $23,405.65 release request number 4 to Hill Buick GMC, leaving a balance of $15,052.83 as recommended by the township engineer.
I moved.
Is there a second? Which is made by Supervisor Altieri, seconded by Supervisor Russo to approve item 11.4. Any further questions or discussions on the motion? Seeing and hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Next, item 12, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the bills on check register A dated July 19th, 2021, which is July 12th, 2021. 19th would be next week, which I reviewed today in the amount of $263,667.85.
Second.
Motion was seconded by Supervisor Partridge. Any further questions or discussions on the bills? Any questions from members of the general public regarding the bills? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. All right, next on the agenda, we have a public hearing to consider the possible license revocation of a permittee in our township. I say late today, and I do mean late today, it was at 4:30 today, that our special counsel, Mr. Sikora, spoke to me regarding this matter and indicating that a agreement, I'll say, has been reached, possibly putting off this hearing for another meeting. So, Mr. Sikora, I will turn it over to you.
Thank you, sir. So the township had received a number of complaints from a number of residents, primarily in the Echo Valley, but other areas as well, of some problems they were having regarding getting their sewer laterals connected to the sewer mains. Not so much the work itself, but the completion of the project and not being completed. Based on that information and the number of complaints, the township had done a notice to the contractor, Mid-Atlantic Mechanical, and said, notice of intent to revoke or suspend the license because of non-compliance with the non-completion of all these contracts. And that was pursuant to section 69 of our township code. The contractor hired an attorney, Mr. Bennick, who's right over here opposite me. And we began some negotiations and discussions and reached an agreement today. And essentially, Mid-Atlantic Mechanical is going to look at and perform completion of contracted services on a series of residences that are all listed on Township Exhibit 1, which we're going to just submit, and that'll be marked. And Mr. Benek has already been emailed a copy of it. And it has a list of issues, things to be completed. And we said, look, if you want to continue to do business in the town, you got to be able to address these issues. And he said, okay, that's what we're going to do. But we also have other contracts that we're already engaged in, and we have to meet those requirements. I mean, these people need sewers and they need to be connected, and we have to finish those jobs. So we worked out the situation where one crew of this company will focus solely on projects that are either moving forward prospectively or have to be done, or the permits are currently being pulled. And one crew will focus exclusively on fixing this list on Township Exhibit 1, to the extent the residents want that to be done. So we all understand that some folks have either taken self-help and have either resolved their issues already, or some folks might not want him on their property anymore, or whatever their situation is. Townships agreed to facilitate. We don't represent any one of these homeowners. Everybody that I haven't spoken with every single homeowner. I've spoken to a number of them. They all realize that I don't represent them. I represent the township. Township's only doing what it can do in the context of its code. So without representing them individually, the townships agreed to facilitate that process of finding out if they want assistance and smoothing the transition of getting that crew back in to finish the job. The work will be approved by the municipal authority's inspector. They have standards as to how the work is supposed to be wrapped up. The grading, raking, seeding, hay, pipes cut, debris removed, there's standards, and they will make sure that it's up to the township and municipal authority standard, not necessarily the customers or the residents' wish list or what they want, but to at least what's considered the workmanlike standard. So we all also understand that process is going to begin immediately and continuously until it's done, but that doesn't mean everything can just be done right away. And so because there's a month between now and the next hearing, we've reached the agreement that what will happen is that Mr. Benek and I are going to coordinate reaching out to these folks, getting the contractor out to finish the work, and overseen and or inspected by the municipal authorities inspector. If that process stalls or doesn't start, and there's not just continuous progress in that regard in the next 2 weeks, then the license will be suspended on the 2-week mark from today, pending, until the next hearing, and then we can either have a full hearing or I don't think that's going to be necessary, but or just, continue on with the suspension depending, how close we're getting. I do believe, based on our discussions, that we're going to just get this resolved in a way that will benefit everybody and benefit the township, and that everybody can go along and make a living and have their yards back. So with,
We get him to get this equipment off within so many days of completing the job.
well,
There's been equipment sitting out there in people's yards.
yes,
For months on end.
yeah, well, that's the other thing that we're doing right now. I mean, is going through the process of how long equipment should be remaining on somebody's property. Now, of course, there's some residents, right, who don't want the property to remain, don't want the equipment to remain on their property overnight and in the middle of the project. And I think I advised, hey, it's probably best to state right up front, this is how long the contract's going to take, this is how long the equipment's going to be there, and that's a more of a customer relations issue. But it's not going to remain upon completion of the project.
And when I refer to equipment, I refer to equipment that's no longer needed to get the grass or the grade level.
No, that's right.
Trench box, it's
Yep.
been sitting on somebody's yard since January.
Yep.
Um,
That's all on this list that we've marked as township exhibit.
So I think if we get that list, whatever it is, and just start hitting these items, I don't see any reason why, with the exception of a few of these problems that are bigger than just
Yep.
grading and removing equipment,
Yep.
they're gonna take a little bit longer, but at least start attacking some of these issues on problems that are more complex, so that in 2 weeks, we can come back and we can report that, hey, we addressed.
Correct.
Give us some movement. I think the biggest problem I hear, and again, I'm only hearing from people that have called me, is that one, equipment stays, two, grading doesn't get done for the contract, whatever that is. And, the conversation, we need to have communication with somebody that's reasonable. So maybe we can find somebody else in that ownership or office that can communicate with the residents and has a little bit more of a professional communication style, deal with the residents, because we're all good people. And if it's confrontational, it'll never get addressed, in my opinion.
And I think the last piece of this puzzle is if that 2-week marks does have to come to the point where there's a suspension, it would be reinstated upon completion of the list. So, or upon a requested hearing by the.
Well, I think
by the
if you
engineer.
get the list started, get forward momentum.
That's the idea.
And then have somebody reasonable reach out to the folks and talk to them. And have somebody reasonable have a conversation with residents, that we can get a list of communication going. I think that would resolve at least the frustration level of the communication. It might not fix everything in 2 weeks, but at least we get a game plan of how to get to completion. And is it Dave Porter or Herb?
Jeremiah McCombie is
Or
primarily
Jeremiah
the
McCombie
inspector.
It's going to inspect this stuff. So those guys are reasonable people, both sides. I think we just need to get some forward progression.
So, Mr. Bennett, can you just enter your appearance on the record and then confirm that I've stated the agreement properly?
Good evening, Joel Bennick. I'm representing Mid-Atlantic Mechanical. Mr. Score is accurately laid out both the problems that arose as well as our proposed resolution of those problems. And I agree with you, Mr. Russo, that I think a key component here is some reasonable communication between all the parties that will go a long way to helping fix both the problems that are occurring on the site as well as the problems that are occurring interpersonally between the participants. I will personally work individually with each of these folks to do what I can to get their needs met as quickly as possible, and we will begin that tomorrow. And I agree with you that there are certain things that can be done very quickly. Others may take a little time, but as stated, the goal here is getting progress forward and having things change. And we are already working with several different individuals within the company to have them work on these things specifically. And I will be keeping tabs on that and making sure that continues. And then if there is a problem with communication, I'll invite any of the residents to reach out to me personally, and I will address those problems. We do appreciate the consideration. Hopefully in 2 weeks, we can have no issues. And at the next meeting, this will become a non-issue altogether. I will continue to work with Mr. Score to get that done, and I'm happy to take any questions if there are any.
Well, I just think this conversation here is a reasonable conversation. I think if you get involved in this, find somebody in this organization, have a conversation like this conversation, at least take the residents, right? And there's always two sides to the story, but if it's a reasonable conversation, I think a lot more is going to be solved than not a reasonable conversation. I think moving equipment that's been sitting there for months on end, that's pretty easy. Get the truck out there, within a few days, you get all that stuff out of the way. And then you start picking off the fruit. I mean, I think there's a few things that are going to be a little bit more time consuming. There's some bigger issues on some people's properties, but I think a lot of the issue has just been communication and the reluctance to finish the work. That's what I'm hearing. Again, I'm not out there looking. I'm just hearing it through the grapevine because I live in that neighborhood. And I think if you can get some forward momentum, and if you're the person that gets into between to identify the items, and we have Jeremiah go out and look at the items that are either completed or not completed, I think you can accomplish a lot in 2 weeks.
Agreed, and we've already begun that process in our preparation for coming to this agreement. Already identified a couple of people within the organization, and I think we'll make this happen more quickly than it has been happening so far.
Great.
So all we really need is a motion to approve the settlement agreement as stated. And with that, it'll make it official and we can get out of your hair.
Before we do that, just I want some clarification. Number one, you're going to advise us in 2 weeks if we need to add this to an agenda item in August to conduct the hearing in August, correct?
Well, actually, what we're going to do is if the progress is not made within 2 weeks, you've authorized the suspension of the license in
Right.
2 weeks. It will stay suspended until such time as either Jeremiah approves the work is done, or at least until such time as it's near completion, right? There is compliance with the agreement, or a hearing is requested by Mid-Atlantic.
Okay.
So it may be in August, it may be, so there might, in possibility, right? In the world of possibilities, there could be a suspension in 2 weeks, and 3 days later, Jeremiah says, hey, the work's done, and they're back, the license is back, and you never have another thing to do. It could be that the license is suspended, gets reinstated before your next meeting, and then by September, we have the same problem, and we do have a full hearing. But the idea is,
Do we know how many contracts your client has yet to start?
As of now, there are permits for approximately 5 that are already contracted but yet to begin. And those are the ones that we had talked about stopping those in order to address these other issues. However, we were of the belief that that might just create 5 more additional problems rather than,
Well, how many locations do you have to fix?
as of today, and what was sent over and is marked on Exhibit 1, there are 13 individual residences and or folks that have made complaints
All right, so 13 locations have to be fixed.
with varying levels of complication,
All right,
but yes.
But let's just say we don't know the level of let's just say, argument's sake, that's 2 weeks of work. I don't know if he's working Saturdays. I don't see his equipment moving on Saturdays in my neighborhood. And just to make it clear, I took out a bunch of rocks from my neighbor's yard that rolled into my yard, and I just picked them up and took them out. So again, and that was on the weekends. So I think we need to focus on the fact that if he's got to have this crew full-time working on these problems, and we have to have Mr. Sikora get a report every week of what's happening. If he feels, in my opinion, that this work's not getting done appropriately, then we have to shift focus and stop starting new jobs and put more people on the corrective board. I don't think I want to come here in 2 weeks or next month
Yeah.
and hear about now we don't have 13 people upset. Now we have 18 people.
My understanding is that if there's no substantial or reasonable progress within the next 2 weeks, the license would be automatically suspended. So
Yes.
so that work would stop even on the
I
newer
understand
projects.
that, but if you have 5 sites now, in the next 2 weeks, you run out and start 5 sites and they're halfway done or incomplete again, because for whatever reason, I just want to understand that I think after 1 week, we should evaluate that there's forward progress making on progress being made on this list of things. Mr. Sikora coordinates that with Jeremiah. That way, we don't end up here in a month with more irate people.
Correct. That's the idea.
And that way, it's a trust thing, right? We're giving you latitude to work for 2 weeks, but if in a week, there's no progress made and there's no communication improvement, there's nothing getting us to the point of correction that's satisfying to the board and the residents, then we stop everything. I think that's what we have to do. I don't think you can wait the 2 weeks and then find out that since we left this meeting tonight, nothing's done at the end of next week. And then now we're further behind the 8 ball, more people started.
I think the only reason we had said 2 weeks is to make sure that there's an opportunity for us to go out there and talk with the owners about what they want and how that folds into the contract.
The issue is we're not even sure who.
Yeah, but I think by next Tuesday, you should be able to come back with some completions, in my opinion.
Especially if it involves just moving equipment.
A lot of this involves moving equipment some of it.
Well,
Some
tomorrow,
involves
move the equipment off there.
Moving dirt, leveling the yards off and taking the big rocks away. I don't know what else this stuff involves, but those are the basic things I'm hearing. So there's no reason why you can't have some forward progress by next Tuesday, a week from tomorrow. And I think we have to have Mr. Sikora be the arbiter of that on our end, because I don't want to, like I said, I don't want to have more irate people than we already have.
I
There should
certainly,
be some people coming off the list, and there should be people that have been communicated with that understand the game plan. Because like you have 13 people now that have a problem. Well, those 13 people aren't going to be done tomorrow or this week. It's going to take you a few weeks to get to some of these people.
I certainly agree there should be progress noted by next Tuesday. And
Right, but I think we need to have Mr. Sikora coordinate that there is progress made, because we're not meeting for a month. I don't think we want to be in this position where we have more irate people. I think we need to say, okay, we made it, I don't know what you call this agreement.
So 2 weeks is the hard stop. There's zero happening in a week. Right?
Yeah, I
There's
think
nothing happening in a week. Like a week, but if we're making reasonable progress,
Right.
and we've got substantial progress.
Reasonable progress is we've had an intelligent, calm conversation with everybody on that list. Reasonable progress is equipment that can be moved off of people's properties is moved. Reasonable progress is if it's a 2-hour job, it's done. You know, if it's an all-day or 2-day job, I understand, but we got to have some progress.
agreed.
Because this has been.
Fair enough. 1 week for reasonable and 2 weeks for substantial.
Absolutely.
Mr. Nishi will keep this on the agenda in light of the new sunshine regulations as old business for next meeting.
I will.
So that we can get a report from Mr. Sikora on the progress and things like that. And if need be, schedule hearing. Number 2, I want to again clarify with Mr. Sikora that none of these issues involve the conveyance of sewage. If I'm correct, it's really just restoration of property and things like that, correct?
I think there's one property that the conveyance of sewage is implicated, and it's far from clear as to whether it's the contractor's responsibility or not. I don't think it's the township's position to be in. It was outside the scope of the original contract. It was closer to the house than where the work was done. I think that's a private
As
issue.
priorities go, I would think that would need to be at least addressed near the top of the list.
The system's functioning.
Well, that's what I'm
Whether-
just trying to clarify. As long as everybody's.
I heard all these things that was non-related to the actual.
The
Okay,
substantial.
so that's
Piping
unclarified.
and the conveyance of the sewer lines. It's been more of an aesthetic thing, more of a, well, he was there and he drove on the wrong side of the lawn and then he didn't fix the wrong side of the
Right.
lawn. He took the truck in, or
So-
he went through somebody's garden wall and didn't fix the garden wall, or he left a trench box in somebody's yard since January.
As long as it's
This
just that
stuff
type of
doesn't
stuff.
seem like it's rocket science, but I think we have a reasonable person.
Some clean out pipes now and happen.
Yeah, just want to make sure that everyone's sewer's working, that's all. Third item, again, I just want to clarify for mainly the public that's here, that our action and our authority deals with the suspension and or rescission of the contractor's license. We are not adjudicating this for the resident. We are not a party to the contracts. It's between them and the contractor as to the actual work. We are stepping in to ensure that he does that work.
Right.
But we are by no means have any authority to do anything other than
As a,
suspend or restore or remove his license altogether.
we can't enforce it, private contracts. We can facilitate this process as a service to our residents, but everybody's clear that we're not. Everybody I've spoken to has been made aware and it's been made clear that I don't represent them and the township can't
You
enforce.
could argue that this is a better approach for them to ensure that their work gets done rather than us just simply saying his permit's removed or his license removed.
Right.
So what do you need? You need a motion from us to accept the agreement?
Yeah, a motion to approve the settlement agreement as explained and agreed to by the
I'll
parties.
make a motion, we do that.
Second.
Motion is made by Supervisor Russo, seconded by Supervisor Partridge to approve the settlement agreement as explained. Any further questions or discussions from members of the board on this item? Seeing none, would any members of the general public like to offer any comment on this? If so, please step forward, state your name and address for the record, and be heard.
My name's Pam Lardison. I live at 4019 Fox Hill Lane in Newtown Square. I have a question. What happens if there's residents who have had issues that haven't reached out? A lot of this conversation or awareness of meetings has been taking place on the Echo Valley Facebook page. So what if there's an elderly couple that's not on the list who's had problems?
I would advise them to reach out to Mr. Sikora.
But how do they even know to do that?
I would advise him to do that to them now. He can provide you his contact information.
Okay.
And reach out to Mr. Sikora and get on the list of folks that need
So
to have
that
their issues addressed.
those 13 people are not, those 13 complaints aren't the end of it, I guess is what I'm
Well,
asking.
13 complaints. Right.
Okay.
Rich, please, use your mic. Thanks.
The 13 complaints that I've been made aware of are what comprise the settlement agreement, and that's what this timeline applies to. If other residents come forward with other issues, that's a new fresh batch of issues that we have to deal with.
Right, but we can at least figure out what they are now.
I would suggest that we have the conversation with Mr. Bennick and try to have a
Right.
reasonable conversation to continue that on, or otherwise there would have to be a separate notice and a separate process.
So again, please reach out to Mr. Sikora, have them reach out to Mr. Sikora so that we can add them to the pool of problems. I think I'm getting a nod from Mr. Bennett here that they will address those also.
My goal would be to keep them from ever having to be coming up in front of you.
Sorry.
Okay. And then fingers crossed that this does not happen. But what happens if his license is suspended? And for those of us who used him, say we have a problem a year down the road when we're still in our guarantee part of the contract, what happens?
I hesitate to say this, but probably litigation.
You'd have to retain counsel on
And
their
that's,
behalf
that's why
and litigate against
the
them.
best way to resolve this is the way we're doing it.
Okay.
Correct.
Okay. All right.
I promise you my goal is to avoid that.
Okay. That would be wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comment on this issue? Seeing none. All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much, Mr. Sikora.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Bennett. All right, moving on to new business. First order, 14.1, consider approving the promotion of Detective John Newell to captain effective July 5th, 2021 at the pay rate as specified in the contract.
So moved. So moved for approval. Second.
Motion is made by Supervisor Partridge, seconded by Supervisor Russo to approve item 14.1. Any further questions or discussions from members of the board on this item? Any questions or discussions from members of the general public on this item? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Item 14.2, consider ratifying the advertisement for the salt bid. Mr. Neese.
Yes, you gave us direction for
Thought so.
George to take on the project. At the time, we did not ask for advertising, but in order for him to meet the August deadline, he had to go ahead and advertise. I'm asking for you to ratify the fact that even though you gave us permission, we should have asked for advertising at the same time. And it's just making sure it's all.
Second.
Motion is made by Supervisor Russo, seconded by Supervisor Partridge to approve item 14.2. Any further questions or discussions from members of the board on this item? Any questions, concerns, comments from members of the general public on this item? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Item 14.3, consider approving the $4,650 cost to perform the wetland delineation study required for the Greer Park Restoration Grant.
Make a motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
which was made by Supervisor Altieri, seconded by Supervisor Roberts Lightcap, to approve item 14.3. Any further questions or discussions from members of the board on this item? Any comments from members of the general public on this item?
I actually do have one thing I want to share. I had a resident come up to me at the farmer's market on Friday, wanting to thank the board for the fact that we are striving so hard to make this, and I know this is not necessarily related to the motion here, but whenever I can get this plug in, I think it's important to thank this board and this Greer Park Committee for making this park accessible for children of all disabilities and individuals of all ages. This resident is someone who has a good amount of children here and said straight, very honestly, you don't really think of these things until you have a child who has special needs, and her latest child was born with special needs, and how there are no parks in the surrounding area that are adaptive to children with disability. So I just wanted to share that because, again, I think this park is going to be the gem of this county when it's all said and done, and it's things like that I think are nice to hear every once in a while. Good job, everyone.
Thank you, Mr. Altieri. All right, a motion was made and seconded. Seeing no further comment, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Item 14.4, discussion with consideration of entering into agreement with Pennsylvania Environmental Council to do a municipal code audit. Mr. Neese, a little bit of explanation?
Sure.
Discussed this before, but a little bit, but go ahead.
Yes. So basically, Leonard and I actually had a meeting with Aqua related to some stormwater issues that were impacting the reservoir. And they just said, they were starting to ask some of the things the township was doing in those areas and recommended that we consider doing this audit. This audit would look at our, particularly our stormwater ordinance, but would also look at our comp plan, our strategic plan, would look at our native plant resolution, would look at our zoning, would look at our land development, and determine whether or not it makes good sense in regards to stormwater in particular, but basically water quality. Are we doing good things in those areas? And if not, where are the areas that we would potentially have places to improve? I believe included in your packet, I'm looking here, yes, all of that was up there, was the scope of work. And then in addition to that was basically their report card. I hope you had a chance to look at that, how that lays out. As you can see, it's quite extensive what they look at in that way. My recommendation to them was that we would maybe focus on a couple areas initially, and one of those being, because we've been working on the zoning rewrite and that's kind of moving along through the process, that we would ask them to look at that as one of the first steps. I would mention that this is at no cost to the township, and I say that a little bit lightly. There is a cost of time that it's going to take to do this from staff. There's a cost, probably some time of yours in reviewing their recommendations and their review. And there would also be some time from some of our volunteers in the process. But I do think that it's an opportunity for us to really understand, and also for the community to see where we are and what that looks like related to stormwater.
And just reinforcing, there's no outlay of cash though that we don't write a check for.
This is all, the biggest cost to us is our time.
Right.
In regards that there's a grant that's paying for them to do this, and we're just piggybacking on that and making our in-kind match is the time of your staff, the time of your volunteers, and the time of you.
But the end result is you're going to have a document that additionally addresses the environmental water quality aspects of all of our documents.
And I think it would fit well in what we're trying to do with the sustainability as well that you passed earlier.
And our strategic plan.
And your
because
strategic plan.
One of the goals was more environmentally sound, better stormwater management practices. This way we can see where there are holes or where there are weaknesses.
Yeah,
So,
it should pay dividends for our MS4 program.
I see this as being a really broad approach. We'll probably all feel a little like, oh my gosh, seems a little overwhelming, but I think when we see all the things that probably we need to make adjustments on, but what you do is you take those recommendations and you move forward.
Right.
And look, I think it's the best way to see where we are today and what some good recommendations are to move forward. And where we're really doing well, we should say we're doing well in these areas. And it would be nice to have somebody come back and say, hey, you are doing well in these areas.
well, this is part of our position, right? We're the stewards of the township, and this will help to move in the future. So
The results could also probably be used for future grant applications. Bolster the position that you need the money
that's a good point.
for those.
What's the length of, that's the only thing I wasn't clear on. How long will this take?
So that's actually kind of a question that I asked as well as I was going through this. It appears to me that, we would assume at least a year. That's why I think we may choose to do working with them, asking them to tackle certain things first, so that we're prepared to address things that are kind of in the works today, so that we're not waiting for a year to get to the end result.
So we have control of the scope.
We have control of the scope in regards to, their whole piece, to do the whole report card is a pretty broad piece. But I've asked, and they've agreed that we could come in and look at our zoning first to make sure that before we spend a lot of time going forward with the zoning rewrite, if they have suggestions, we would get that incorporated before we finalize what that is.
That would make sense.
And so, yes, we have control of the scope, but the scope is still the whole piece of looking at everything.
Somebody want to offer a motion?
Make a motion to approve entering into an agreement with Pennsylvania Environmental Council to do a municipal code audit.
Second.
Motion is made by Supervisor Altieri, seconded by Supervisor Partridge to approve item 14.4. Any further questions or discussions on this item from the board? Any comments from members of the general public on this item? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Last item of new business, item 14.5. Consider approving the tax penalty refund request from Benjamin Freeman at 4411 Florida Avenue, totaling $40 for a penalty attached to a late tax payment. I believe today we received all the correspondence from Mr. Freeman and between our tax collector, Mr. Freeman, on this issue. Board's pleasure. $40. I don't,
I don't have an issue.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion is made by Supervisor Roberts Lakehab, seconded by Supervisor Partridge to approve the tax penalty refund totaling $40. Any further questions or discussions on the motion? Any questions or discussions from members of the general public?
We shut the lights off as soon as we pass the.
Well,
We're not going to be able to
Yeah.
avoid the lights by doing this.
All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. We have no items listed under old business. Item 16, ordinances. We have two ordinances. Item 16.1 is consider approving ordinance 2021-05, the Newtown Township Fire Company Emergency Service Cost Reimbursement Ordinance.
Which was already discussed.
No, we discussed it. This is the approval. We have.
Yeah, no, I'm saying we've already.
Yeah, it's been
No, we have to vote.
advertised.
Yeah,
It's,
Right.
yeah, we just have voted. So here it is. Can I read it? Go ahead.
Okay, Township of Newtown, Delaware County, ordinance.
What's the stop signs?
I think what we can do is just say, consider approving ordinance 2021-05, Newtown Township Fire Company Emergency Services Cost Reimbursement. It's like 5 pages.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Is that your motion, Mr. Altieri?
That's my motion.
second.
All right. Motion is made by Supervisor Altieri, seconded by Supervisor Partridge to approve item 16.1, the ordinance 2021-05, Newtown Township Fire Company's Emergency Service Cost Reimbursement Ordinance. Any further questions from members of the board on this item? Any questions from members of the general public on this item? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Next on the agenda is item 16.2, which is ordinance 2021-06, amending chapter 165-1, subsection 6 of the Township Code to add a stop sign east on Hidden Spring Circle at Mayland Road. Supervisor Roberts, like that.
I'd like to make a motion to approve ordinance number 2021-06, an ordinance to amend the code of the Township of Newtown, County of Delaware, Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, Chapter 165, entitled Vehicles and Traffic, Article 1, Section 16.1, Stop Intersections Designated. Whereas Township Code Section 165-1 designates the stop sign intersections for township streets, and whereas based on the Chief of Police's recommendation of June 28, 2021, a stop sign is needed on east on Hidden Spring Circle at Mayland Road. Now therefore, the Township of Newtown hereby ordains that Section 1, the Code of Township of Newtown, Chapter 165-1, vehicle stop intersections designated shall be amended to add paragraph L subsection 6, east on Hidden Spring Circle at Mayland Road. Section 2, effective date. This ordinance shall be effective 30 days after its adoption by the Township of Newtown. Section 3, repeal. Are all ordinances, resolutions, or parts thereof inconsistent herein are repealed, rescinded, canceled, and annulled to the extent of such inconsistency. Enacted by the Board of Supervisors of the Township of Newtown, Delaware County, Pennsylvania, this 12th day of July, 2021. That's my motion.
There's a second.
Second.
Which was made by Supervisor Roberts, like that, seconded by Supervisor Altieri to approve ordinance 2021-06, which provides for a stop sign east on Hidden Spring Circle at Mayland Road. Any further questions from members of general or members of the board on this item? Any comments from members of the general public on this? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. We have nothing listed under additional business. Would any board member like to make a comment? Seeing none, we'll move on to public comments.
Anybody get to take a breath?
No. Remind everybody that this is the period of the agenda for public comment on any items that are not on the agenda. Seeing none, we are in adjournment. I thank everybody for attending. Next meeting of the Newtown Township Board of Supervisors is Monday, August 9th at 7 p.m. Please have a safe and happy time between then and now, and make sure you buy Tasty Cakes on July 14th. We are in.
What did you say? Like tasty?